Welcome. This video is on gathering research for your speech presentation. If you've read the assignment sheet for speech number 2, you know that there are a minimum of 4 credible sources that are going to be required for this speech. When you get to speech 3, which is the persuasive speech, there will be a minimum of 5 sources. So it's important that we learn and understand what is a credible source and how do we gather that information. So the first thing we want to understand is what is a credible source. So the guidelines for selecting a credible source are sources that are respected in the academic community. These are sources that people within your audience, your instructors, anybody who was listening to your speech in an academic setting would believe to be credible sources. They have veracity, they've been vetted by their publisher, they include correct factual information. These are sources that have been verified with supporting evidence. They include references to experts, they show sources that have been cited. Sources that have been published in a respected journal or a newspaper or a magazine will be considered to be credible. Sources that are affiliated with an educational or a government institution. You know this if it's a website and it has a .edu or a .gov. Sources that are affiliated with a newsworthy organization. This could be CNN, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Psychology Today. So any of those things would be credible sources. So where do we find our credible sources? Well, the first place to go would be to the academic databases. When we think about academic databases, these are websites on the clark.edu page in the library link, and I'm going to take you to that in a minute here. But these are databases that the library subscribes to that archive thousands and thousands of articles from newspapers and magazines and journals. They have edited and verified all of these articles for you. So when you type in a search, it will give you the articles that are associated with that topic, and they have already been vetted and approved by the database. You don't have to do any other work other than to make sure that the article is relevant to what you're talking about. Some of these databases, and hopefully you've used a few of these before, one or two of them, would be ProQuest, EBSCOhost, CQ Researcher. These can be found in the Cannell Library link on the clark.edu homepage, and I'm going to take you to that here in a minute. If you're done with your academic databases, you've looked, you've found everything you need, and there's still some areas that you need to kind of fill in, then consider doing a Google search. I would make your Google search something you do after you have consulted the academic databases, and we'll see why this is the case when we get to my examples. When you do a Google search, make sure that you're looking for websites that are respected. If you are unsure as to whether or not they are a respected website, go to the About link to educate yourself about them. We want to avoid any sources that have excessive ads. You don't want any company websites. You don't want satirical websites, humorous websites. Here are some examples of some sources that are not credible. So if you're on a Google search and you're pulling up websites, if you find a website that's not affiliated with an educational, government, or newsworthy organization, this includes things like blogs, testimonials, personal websites, they are not credible. Websites that have an agenda, that are biased, that lack credible sources or have a purpose other than to inform or educate. There are a lot of conspiratorial websites, a lot of websites that put out false information, and you can tell if they don't have a source that's linked to it. Generalized websites. These are things like Wikipedia, almanacs, dictionaries, encyclopedias. None of those are going to be considered credible resources for this speech. You find primary research that is not embedded in a secondary source like Wikipedia or a dictionary or an encyclopedia. Finally, company websites. If you find an article on a website that's associated with a company, I give you a couple examples here, Pringles.com, GeneralMotors.com. Typically, the information that you find on that website, even if you think it's accurate, is going to be tainted by the fact that that's on a company website, a website that's actually going to put research on there that supports their own company values and beliefs. Okay. So one of the things we want to do is we're going to now take a look at the databases for finding research. So if you've never used a database before, the place you want to start is the Clark College homepage. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the directory link. And you're going to click that on. And it's going to take you to the directories. And I'm going to minimize my face here. And so we're going to go to the Clark directory. We're going to scroll down here to the library page. And we're going to click that on. That's going to take us to the Cannell Library website. So when you get to this website, go up here to the research link and scroll down to what's called articles and databases. That's going to take you to the database page on the Clark College library page. When you go over here to the right, these are the most popular databases. These are the ones that I have mentioned: EBSCOhost, CQ Researcher, ProQuest. So you don't really have to worry about all these 73 databases that are here. What you want to look for are the databases that are the broader search engine. So we're going to start with EBSCOhost. And when you click this on, it is going to ask you to sign in. So you have to give your username and your password. I'm not sure how students sign in, but it'll prompt you, I think, for either your user ID number and your password or your PIN number. And then I will log in. And once I log in, I have access to the database. From this database, this allows me to search for information, and it will return the academic sources that I'm looking for. So let's say I want to do a speech on volcanoes. I might type in volcanoes, and I'm also going to go down here and I'm going to click on full text, because what that means is it will only return sources that are full text. And then I'm going to do a search and see what comes up. And as I scroll down here, I'm going to see a whole host of sources that might be relevant for me. So there are peer-reviewed sources here. There are magazine articles. There are newspaper articles. So it will continue to take you through to different articles. Here's one called The Pacific's Fiery Ring, and I might want to do a little bit of research on the fiery ring that's in the Pacific. This comes from the National Geographic, so I know this is an academically sound source. Because I clicked on full text, it gives me the entire text of the article. And over here, it's the HTML full text, so I would want to click that on, and it would give me the entire text of the article. The other nice thing about this is when I go over here, I could print this article off if I wanted to. If you have a home computer, you could email it to yourself, so you don't have to keep coming back to this source. And then if you are going to use this article in your paper, then you would click the Cite button, and this gives you all the citation options for you. Since we're going to be doing MLA, you can copy this citation and then paste that into your Works Cited page, and you are good to go. Make sure you are also capturing the hyperlink that will allow me to go directly to the article when I am grading your papers. So the other thing that we want to think about here is going back and looking at the idea that I have started with volcanoes, but because I now have 5,000 search results, I might add an additional key terms, so volcanoes and eruptions, and see if that narrows my focus a little bit. And it does. It takes it down about to a third of those. And this gives me even more. So one of the things you want to do is you want to use these databases. This is a great place for you to find your research so that you are able to determine that you've got academic sources. Play around with your search results. So that is using the databases. And let's go back to the database page. You might try using ProQuest. ProQuest is also another great option for you. And it does the same thing. You get a search. Make sure that you click on the full text key here. And this is important. And then do another search. In this case, I might do how paper is made. And then I'm going to do a search and see if that gives me any information. So play around with your keywords. Type in a bunch of different options to see what happens. And here we go. Here's one from the PR Newswire. Ask how paper is made, the latest released in a series of educational works. Books for children, how bread is made. Let's see, how paper is made, the American printer. So any of these may work. You've got to click them on, scroll through, see if it's going to give you any of that information that you would like. One other cool thing here is you can always go to the Clark Libraries page, and what you can do is get help. You can ask a librarian. So if you click this on, you can chat with a librarian 24/7. You can also contact the library staff. So again, we are at a disadvantage because we're completely online, and normally you could walk into the library and ask for help, but these Ask a Librarian chat sessions are really effective for you. Okay, so let's say now that we are going to take a chance and jump on a Google search and see if we can find some websites. Here's what I want to begin with. I want to begin with this evaluation sheet. And this is important, and I put a copy of this on the Module 3, Week 3 module page. Every time you land on a website, you need to make sure that you are applying the tests of evidence for that website. The first thing you want to determine is who is responsible for this site. Is there an individual author? Is the author a sponsoring agency? Is there a parent organization? If you cannot find who the publisher of this article is or this website, and you think there's something, suspicious about it, move on. I'm going to give you a couple of really good examples of why it's important to look for who the actual sponsoring agency is. For example, if you find a website that says, here are the 5 characteristics of a good vacuum cleaner, and you think, hey, this is great, but you don't follow through to see who the publisher is, and the publisher is the Hoover Vacuum Cleaner Company, that means all that information is biased. What type of site is it? Is it a .edu? Is it a .net, a .gov, a .org, a .mil, or a .com? Any of these can be credible sources, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of .coms are sources that are not credible, but pretend to be, put out information that's not really valid. In the colloquial terminology that we're using now, fake news. You should always make sure you determine when the site was updated or created. If you cannot find a date that tells you when this information was put on the website, then it's likely not going to be useful to you. Where can you find more information? Is there an email address? Is there contact information? More importantly, is there documentation? If they're going to make arguments and make claims, do they have evidence for that? So look for a bibliography. Look for sources. And then why was this site created? Was it designed to sell? If you find that here you're doing a speech on diabetes and you find a website that talks about a special cream that can help with dry skin for diabetics, and you don't follow the links to see whether or not this website is published by a company that's selling the cream, then it becomes biased. But let's say it's a medical organization, it's the CDC, and you find an article on this new cream, that is more likely to be credible. Sometimes they're designed to persuade. Sometimes they want to advocate an agenda or inform. So make sure you're following through on all of these tests to see whether or not the website is going to be valuable for you. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is you want to do, let's say, a Google search. So let's say I want to do a speech on, I don't know, frogs. I'm going to click on frogs, and it's going to bring me down to my list of search results. And in this case, you're going to have, what does this have? 540 million results. So the first thing you need to recognize is 540 million results is likely going to be a lot of fake stuff on here and stuff that isn't going to be valid. Almost always the top of your search is going to be Wikipedia. We don't use Wikipedia simply because it can't be validated. Here is livescience.com, facts about frogs and toads. Live Science, I'm going to want to determine, is Live Science a credible source? I'm going to apply my tests. I'm going to look at that and say, is this published by an educational institution? Is this a company that's selling information about frogs and toads to make money off of it? I'm going to go down here. This is Britannica.com. That's an encyclopedia, so I'm not going to use an encyclopedia. The San Diego Zoo. Now, this is a .org, but it's an organization. It's a zoo organization, so this is going to be an educational website, and this is likely going to be a good source for you. The New York Times.com. Again, this is also a credible source. It's a newsworthy organization. Defenders.org. The first thing I'm going to notice about this is that it is a website that is about the defenders of wildlife, which means it's going to be biased. They're only going to put information on this website that supports their position on defending wildlife. So I'm going to skip right past this because this fails my objective guideline. So these are some things you want to think about. If you're going to use a website, when you click it on, make sure that you get the entire article. You don't have to print it, but you might want to bookmark this so you can come back to it. Make sure that you can get a clear website MLA guideline. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to do was show you some websites that on the surface look like they are likely to be credible, but when we go below the surface, we realize that they are not. This is called worldnewsdailyreport.com. So it looks like a newspaper. But then as we scroll down, we see stories that start to raise some red flags. Texas man admits kidnapping 79 people to anally probe them while disguised as an alien. Lottery winner arrested for dumping $200,000 worth of manure on an ex-boss's lawn. One of the things about websites is they like to be entertaining. They like to create satire. So if you are reading through this and you find articles that look a little suspicious, you want to apply those tests. Is there more information I can find about this? Where's the about? What do I know about this? I'm going to go up here to the About Us, and I want to see what they're going to tell me about their website. It says World News is an American Jewish Zionist newspaper based in Tel Aviv, based on covering biblical archaeology news and other mysteries around the globe. Well, we know that's not true since they're giving you some kind of fake information. So you want to start sort of, applying your own tests of evidence on this. Here's another one, Empire News. Again, looks just like a newspaper, but then it says, Trump to host massive I beat impeachment party at the White House this weekend. Parent company of Corona Beer sues China over bad press during their coronavirus scare. Michelle Obama files for divorce after shocking revelation that Barack Obama admits he's gay. Jeffrey Epstein spotted alive and well in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So again, this is all information and all news that's designed to be sort of satirical and funny. This also, again, looks just like a regular newspaper, but Trump declares that Hillary Clinton is coronavirus patient zero. So these are all websites that look on the surface to be credible websites, but they're really not. Now, here's a really good example of how we can be lulled or faked out by websites. This used to be a live website. I've created a screenshot of it. This was a website called martinlutherking.org, and it gave some links to some specific information about Martin Luther King, including truth about the king, some historical writings. So when you look at this website, it says martinlutherking.org, and we think, oh, this is an organization about Martin Luther King. And if we took all this information on this website at face value, we would actually be giving a lot of propaganda. Because if we scrolled to the bottom of this website, if it were an actual live website, we would find that it is published by a group called Stormfront. Stormfront here is a white supremacist organization. So in other words, they're posting all this information about Martin Luther King, but it really is designed to persuade you to be more supportive of white supremacist ideals. And if you had not gone to the bottom and looked to see who published that, you would end up getting spurious information. Here's another website called Save the Pacific Tree Octopus. And again, it looks like a really reputable website, except there's no such thing as a Pacific Northwest tree octopus. This is just a fake kind of satirical website. Here's a website warning us about the dangers of dihydrogen monoxide, and it gives us all kinds of facts about it. What are some of the dangers? It tells us that it leads to corrosion of metals, that it's given to vicious dogs involved in deadly attacks. It's a huge component of acid rain. So on the surface, this looks like it's something you might really want to inform us about. The reality, however, is dihydrogen monoxide is actually water. So this is kind of a website that's designed to kind of pull you in and make you think about how dangerous it can be to be told that something is toxic for you on websites that are satirical or designed to have an agenda of some sort. We can go to a website like CNN. CNN is actually a newsworthy organization, but double check to make sure that there isn't any sort of bias. They tend to have more of a liberal slant, just like Fox News will have more of a conservative slant, and it's important that you make sure you are finding the information that is important to you for your article, or for your speeches, and make sure that it's not slanted in one way or the other. Again, here's one, CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This is a cdc.gov. But here's a great example of a business website. Let's say you want to talk about the importance of hand sanitizers. What goes in a hand sanitizer? Why are they so important in this time of coronavirus? And you stumble on this website, Frontlines Prioritized by Purell. It talks about 80% of people have a more positive impression when you use Purell. Learn how our Purell works best. All of that may be credible information, but it's by Purell. They're selling their own brand of hand sanitizer, so this would not be an effective website. So I hope that this has given you some ideas about how to find research. Please don't hesitate to contact me, send me an email, send me a link to your source, and I'll be happy to look it over and see whether or not the source is going to work. Be sure you're applying those tests. Please read the assignment sheet. please watch the video on how to prepare your informative speeches, and also the video on how to cite sources in your speeches. So thanks for listening. See you in the next video.